things to pick up on there. Matt mentioned Russell Peltz. I've just got this book.
I was just about to say, I'm sure he's got a new book out.
$30 and a cut eye, 50 years in boxing. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into that. You mentioned the risk versus reward equation there, John, and that's absolutely crucial. It's much like this podcast. We take an enormous risk getting you on every time, but the reward is huge, not just for us, but
for the risk anymore. I think I'm like that guy who sells 500 tickets against anyone. I don't think it's a risk anymore.
But also, you were talking about, and I never really thought about this, the idea that what people are drawn to in fiction, they don't seem to be drawn to in fact. And it's a really good point. I think over the last few years, things have got very binary, just generally. In sport, they have been for a while maybe, but just across society more widely, either you're for something or you're against it. And with sports fans, a lot of the time, somebody's either the best, and if they don't think they are the best, or at least could be the best, then they're shit. You know, that's just kind of how people think about things. And boxing does have this kind of strange relationship with defeat, basically, because you can arrange your own fixtures and you can do your best to keep someone unbeaten. In other sports, you can't really do that. I read a really good quote from Jack Nicklaus a while ago, and golf's different, obviously, because a win is, you have to win the whole tournament to win. You're not just playing a one-on-one against somebody all the time. But Paul McGinley was talking about it, former Ryder Cup captain. He said he went out with Jack Nicklaus early in his career for dinner, a few people around, was pretty starstruck, didn't really say anything. And then at the end of the dinner, Jack Nicklaus just said to him, piece of advice for you. I'm the best to ever play this game, and I only win 10% of the time. And boxing's just kind of, it's not like that, is it? You know,
no, it's strange. It's strange. If you give a boxing fan a film of their favourite fighter, they'd walk out the cinema after 20 minutes. You know, if you give them a film of like, well, he's going to win all these easy, then we're going to pick the best fights, we're going to make sure he has the ones that suit his style, he's going to win them quite comfortably, people would walk out the cinema after half an hour. They'd go, this is fucking rubbish. Yeah, in sport, that's what they want to see. Yeah, if you give a boxing fan their favourite boxing film in real life, Rocky, and say we're going to have a roller coaster, we're going to go up and down, it's a guy from round the corner from you, he's down on his luck, he's just met his first girlfriend, he's saving for his marriage, they'd all go, fuck that, I'm not buying a ticket for that clown. Yeah, it wins Oscars and everyone wants to watch it every time it's on every bank holiday. It's really odd, and I'm hoping that like people are going to look at themselves and start assessing their life and buying tickets for my shows more, to be honest, after that revelation about Rocky.
But do you know what it is? I'll tell you what it is. It's one word: hype. People buy into hype. So the undefeated, he's going to be the next three-weight world champion, he's Olympic. They're excited by hype. It's like a ticket. You know, when you're selling tickets for a small hall show, I know you've got it down to a T now, John, and you put the things, and you've built a reputation that it's a good show, so you've got that going. But let's say a young kid turning pro, trying to shift a few tickets, it's fucking hard work. You know,
it really is.
He's nearly trying to fall out with his pals if they don't buy one type thing, where you get two people then where there's a I don't know, George Groves Frutch, the second fight, because of what happened and everything, the hype, you couldn't get a ticket. 60,000, how many, 80, whatever it was in Wembley, you could not get a ticket. There was people that were mad for tickets to go to that fight that never go to a fight ever, because it was the hype they were buying into. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when someone's undefeated, it's a lot easier to create the hype. Where when someone's maybe had 10, won 7, lost 3, the hype, the bubble's been burst. You know what I mean? But when someone's undefeated, that bubble keeps getting bigger and bigger. You can keep growing that hype.
Yeah, it's funny though. I do think another aspect to it is that people just, particularly now with social media and everybody trying to put their lives online, people want to be associated with winners. Somehow they feel that reflects on them. Everybody wants to put out this image of how their life is going spectacularly well 24 hours a day. And that's not real. I mean, we all know that's not real. It's much easier to identify, surely, with someone who's happy to open up about a few struggles. And I think we are getting there in that regard. I remember probably about 20 years ago, there was a real sort of shift in sporting autobiographies. Prior to that, I scored my first hat-trick when I was 7, and then just a list of stuff they'd done, and it was boring.
Do you know what it is as well, though, Andy? What it is as well, though? So I just want to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt you, because just in case I forget, TV companies want to put on world class, the best. You know, because it's on TV. It's this is the best of sport, right? But once a guy's lost a few, they think, he's not as good, and they're on to the next one. It's ruthless. They're moving quick. You lose one.
Do you know what though, Matt? Do you know what? You're exactly right there in sports. But do you know what's strange? TV companies doing the X Factor. If somebody comes out with their VT and says, well, I've won every talent contest I've been in, I'm brilliant, I'm going to do really well, nobody can beat me, I'm unbeatable, everyone will be like, get rid of that clown. They come on and they say, oh, my nan's died, my dog's dead, the next door neighbour's house blew up, and that's how they win. Yeah. Anything else, they kind of sell the bad luck and things going wrong to get people invested. In boxing, it seems to be, unless you are the absolute best, nobody's going to be interested in you. Like you look at X Factor. If you go on there as Floyd Mayweather, you're not getting past the first round.
So it's interesting point, John. So, and I was going to get to it. So, in boxing, in television, Rocky, $1 Million Baby, it's struggle, it's up, it's down, it's human emotions up and down, it's life stories, 24/7 programs. Why were they so good, and why did they push the pay-per-view? It wasn't because he was hitting the pads. It was because his backstory is this, or his missus left him, and his trainer was ill, or whatever it was. It's that it's facing adversity and different things and struggle that most humans can relate to in some shape or form, but from a TV point of view, as in the main event or putting on a show, like, for example, HBO, I had 4 or 5 back-to-back fights on HBO. They wanted to be the pinnacle of boxing, world-class boxing. So they might have had some guys on there that not necessarily have been the most flamboyant of personalities, or might not have had the best story in the world, but they're the best of the best of the best, and it's all the best, and it's world-class boxing. It's like the Premier League. It's the Premier League. Maybe that's a bad example, but what I'm saying is, in boxing, if some of these guys that have lost a few, that are thrown on the scrappy because they're lost and people think there's a limit to where they're going to go now. But if the TV actually went into it and done their stories a little bit and put a bit, they called it shoulder programming. I know Eddie was keen on that, where you're actually, showing who these people are, telling these people's stories a little bit, not just showing them boxing, but actually showing their stories. You're developing their marketability then by doing that. But a lot of the time, all TV companies only want to develop the story if it's a pay-per-view event.
The other problem you've got there is, Matt, some of the very best boxers are the best boxers because they're boring bastards. The very best boxers run, go to bed, eat the right food, train, repeat. The guys who are a bit wild and who would make good TV don't live the life. So it's kind of like, if we get to know them, we find out that they're really boring, and that's why they're so good at the craft. But the ones who are really interesting, your Randall Tex Cobbs, your Arturo Gattis, ultimately they run up against someone who lives a boring, perfect life, and the interesting story goes out the window because they get walloped. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's really tricky. I just think buy tickets for all boxing shows that are at Aston Villa. Start there and just move on.